Quiet on set. Start rolling cameras. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Welcome everybody to RMU's live Periscope question and answer session between Interim President and Provost David Jamison and our new President-elect of RMU, Dr. Chris Howard.
President Howard, welcome. This is a chance for us to ask some questions of you as you think about this opportunity ahead. A number of these questions were submitted by students, so this is inquiring student minds want to know. I'm sure you will. Yeah. So as you were in the thinking about a possible next step in your career, what got you interested in Robert Morris University?
Well, first off, I want to say that although you're not Zach Galifianakis, I think we have two ferns almost here. So
Almost,
I feel like I'm between the ferns,
There
which
you
is a
are.
lot of fun. But in all seriousness, I thought if I moved on from my present institution, Hampton Sydney College, it would be to a place that is on a real trajectory. And this school is on one, and that's thanks to your leadership and President Delamo's leadership. What a great foundation in how you teach your communication skills and how you bring the professions in and the great graduate programs. And this is such a great region. So, you know, as I thought about the cauldron of different elements that would come together, it would be a place like RMU with all those sort of ingredients, and especially vibrancy, from the President administration to the Board of Trustees to the students to the entire community. There's a sense of hopefulness in an era in higher education where there's not as much hopefulness. And so those are the things that attracted me here, and I'm just so delighted to be a part of it.
Well, we're delighted you were attracted here. It's about changing lives at Robert Morris, and I know you and your wife Barbara have been deeply involved in changing lives. And I wonder if you could comment on that aspect of your career, what you and your wife have done in terms of changing lives and bringing students to the States and affecting students in so many ways.
Oh, sure. I'm delighted to answer the question. That quote comes from Mahatma Gandhi, you know, be the change in the world you want to see. And I give a talk where I talk about Mahatma Gandhi and what he meant in terms of a moral force in civilization. And I think our moral compass directs us to help others. As I told the Board of Trustees earlier, when in doubt, help others. But specifically, my wife is from Johannesburg, South Africa. I like to say, if you think you're from the South, you're not from the South. My wife is from South Africa. She's really from the South. That's the real South. Having said that, we thought about 11, 12 years ago as part of a project I did at the Aspen Institute that we would impact young lives of people in her community in South Africa by bringing them over to America for an educate, expose, and enlighten trip, about 3 weeks to see America's civil society in action. And Dave, the idea was it was a fledgling democracy, a proud democracy, but let's show students of color, in particular college students, how we do it well, what we don't do well. And we've been doing that, like I said, I'm proud to say, about 12 years, brought about 70 students over, many of whom they're thriving, and most of them in South Africa. But I think there are a few that could come to graduate school over here. I'm keeping my eye out and might be tweeting to them tonight to make sure they get their applications in for RMU. So,
another part of our core values here, as you've already internalized, is individuals matter. And it sounds like you've made that a part of your whole life.
yes.
Emphasizing how an individual can make a difference.
You know, it's neat. People ask me, why do you do this college presidency thing? And you know, as a CEO, I think instead of a chief executive officer, actually the chief empowerment officer. You're empowered to help people to achieve their dreams. And to your point, it's great to watch an institution like you all have done so effectively move from here to here. But you know, there's a Fred and there's a Susie and there's a Joseph. And there's a really tall basketball player that actually, you know, you help them do something maybe they thought they couldn't do. So this is a place that has, as I said to the board earlier, it has a feel of a small liberal arts college and a really, really good athletic program to boot. And so it's great to have that granular intimacy with students and to treat them with respect and dignity and help them to achieve their dreams and aspirations.
I think it's one of the things that got us most excited in thinking about your candidacy as we knew more about it is that you have that commitment to individuals and to making a difference, seeing how individual lives can make a difference, because we believe that strongly here.
It comes across.
Yeah. I wanted also, one of our students wanted to know, and you've met a number of our students today, we got a number of them here in the room with us. One of the students wanted to know, what do you think will be the differences between your current institution, students there, and kind of the type of student that you might anticipate at RMU?
Well, as you know, the school I'm coming from was an all-male institution, so there's a pretty obvious
Pretty obvious.
biological one there. But having said that, it is about young people in particular, but it's also about faculty, staff, and coaches and what have you, helping them kind of figure out sort of true north. And people that are desirous of getting better are the kind of students that have always been around, whether they've been at University of Oklahoma, at Hampton-Sydney College, and on the Board of Regents at Baylor. And I don't see much daylight between the type of person that wants to find out who they are, understand the world around them, and figure out how they're going to make their mark in the world to make it better, to make their region better, to make their families better. And so I've seen that from what I've come across here at RMU with the students I've met, and I know that's what's the case at Hampton-Sydney College.
Intercollegiate athletics have been something in your life, but it's been a part of the hallmark of Robert Morris as we've made progress, D1 intercollegiate athletics. And I wonder what your anticipation is in helping us grow in that way as well, in intercollegiate athletics.
Well, I use a quote. I speak to many of the athletic teams when I'm as a president and even as a vice president in Oklahoma. And there's a quote from General Douglas MacArthur at West Point, and it goes like this: that on the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds, and other days and other fields will bear the fruits of victory. So first and foremost, athletics gives us an opportunity to help young men and young women develop character and discipline and understand teamwork and attention to detail. It makes them better human beings, David. I know you agree with that. I know you've had extensive work with the NCAA. Next is a program, is one of my favorite young people in the world, a guy named Myron Roll, used to always say, he played at Florida State, is that he's a Rhodes Scholar, and now he's a doctor in medical school, real underachiever, you know, playing professional football as well. But he says an athletic program can become the doorstep for a university. And so one of the first things that people are going to see is that they're going to see these colonials in their gladiator uniforms, whether they're playing softball or women's basketball or football or ice hockey or what have you. And so that's another big part of it. And then the last part, and I look forward to conversations with the coaching staff and the athletic director, is that, you know, let's win with character, let's win with integrity, but let's win.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very possible to do. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, and we had that same mentality from our superintendent to our athletic director to my head coach Fisher DeBerry, who's actually in the College Football Hall of Fame. I like to take some credit for that, but that would be wrong for me to do that. Yes. But I think that those are the type of programs that lift the institution. You know, they give it the wind beneath the sails. They don't overshadow it. They're not more important than. The academic program is what we're all about, but sports can be a big part of it because it can help, as you said before, individuals matter and about being the change. Sports can be a big part of that.
What do you feel like in your own case that it helped you with in terms of discipline? I mean, you already, discipline's what the academy is all about, but I think that'd be a different kind of discipline with the D1
with the sports
football.
I guess the role of teamwork, the role of attention to detail, most importantly, resiliency. I think that's probably the main thing. When you play football, or you compete in any other sport, you get knocked down 3 times, get up 4 times, as the old Japanese proverb or D. Wade commercial would tell you. You know, that idea that you can get hit in the mouth. In football, you do tend to get hit in the mouth. And to be able to get up, dust yourself off, and find the wherewithal to go forward has served me well in my life. And I will tell you, as someone who served in the military, in higher education, in corporate, nonprofit, what have you, that I've gotten knocked down plenty of times. I know all of us have, and I think I've called upon those lessons from my time at the Air Force Academy, and even before that, playing Texas high school football, to hopefully be a good man that I am today.
I understand you'll be a recovering Dallas Cowboys fan when you're here. So one of our students wants to know what's your prediction for tonight between the Steelers and the Patriots.
Pain for the Patriots.
Pain for the Patriots.
Pain for the Patriots. I tell you what, I am a Cowboys fan. I was born there, but I tell you what, I've got a lot of respect for the Steelers. I got a lot of respect for the program, from the Rooneys down to Tomlin to Coach Cowher, to Coach Knox. I mean, he only had 3 of them, right? I mean,
Right.
they've all been very, very good. And so, and I've been to a couple of games before, so I love the program, and I wish them all the best. I tried to call the Commissioner Goodell and ask him if Brady could just miss 1 game, but you know,
This would be a good.
he didn't do it. So I'm sorry about that.
Well, you've identified the Steelers as a model organization. They really
Yeah,
are. And the
yeah.
Rooney family has been so good to Pittsburgh and to this institution.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Sure.
you know, I know you'll appreciate that. You've heard already about the plans for constructing a new event center on the campus, which we think will be the biggest project we've ever undertaken.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about the difference that could make for us at Robert Morris? You know, sort of a major events facility.
Sure. You know, again, I'm kind of new to it, so I don't have all the details.
Sure.
But my sense that the thing that makes it most compelling is not just the events arena, which would be spectacular in its own right in terms of the wonderful business community in Pittsburgh, working and co-branding with Robert Morris, which is a fine university, but it's the Domino's that you and I talked about at dinner last night. The not Domino's Pizza, we didn't have that.
No,
we
we
had
didn't
a
have
better
that.
meal than that.
Did a little better than that.
A little better than Domino's, but it's the domino effect of the current Sewell Center being able to be used as a student center, and then other space freed up in other places that actually leads to academic spaces, perhaps engineering.
Yep.
I know that this is still in the works. Board has to sign off on it. Senior administration, the community will weigh in, but it seems like all those things weigh to tip the scale toward doing something really special. This school, going back to the Island Center,
Island Sports Center.
Sports Center, has been willing to take some swings and to be rationally opportunistic. And this seems like a rationally opportunistic approach that's going to bring a lot of excitement, not to mention great basketball. I mean, it's funny, you think you'd start with that, but you actually end with that because of what it means to the community. Plus, the community will be able to use it for other things. And again, in my role as a member of the Board of Regents at Baylor University down in Texas, they built a big football complex, but the community of Waco has benefited because there's only so many football games played there. And so maybe this is not exactly the same, but I've seen a whole community lifted by a facility they can be proud of. Yeah.
So one of our students wants to know, and your story is going to be an inspirational one. What are the highlights of getting from Plano, Texas, to a Rhodes Scholarship, to a college, university presidency? What are some of the things that you could tell our students that would help them along a journey that they might aspire to?
I don't have a clue. I don't know how I got here, man. No, I'm just kidding. You know, it was funny. I told the story earlier today that I was a guy that thought that service was very important. And in 7th grade, we wrote a letter to my congressman and said that I'm a good student, I'm a good athlete, I'm a good leader, and I want to go to West Point, and you need to give me an appointment when I turn 18 years old. I got the letter back from the congressman. He said, I'm not your congressman. I'm the wrong person, but I'll pass your letter along. And so after I, bounced back from that, I did end up going to the Air Force Academy. It was all about service. You know, my dad had been an Army officer, Vietnam veteran, Bronze Star recipient, my uncle 2 tours in Vietnam. I always felt like, as my mom said, and the Bible says, one to whom much is given, much is also expected. And then I made my way kind of serendipitously to Oxford on the Rhodes Scholarship. And if I would have known about RMU, I would have applied to come here and I got into Rhodes. But alas, but I ended up and kind of fell into that. People kept asking me to apply, and I kept saying no. But I finally did because a faculty member, professor, put his arm around me in a very tough class. I made an A- in that class. I was so happy, history professor. He said, you got to apply for this scholarship. And, Colonel Hitchcock, he just really changed my life. So amongst other people along the way. And went to Oxford, and I got into the Air Force and just had a good run. I always pointed towards service, decided to get into the corporate side after some time in the military, including some time at Special Operations Command, some time as a pilot. And just kind of wanted to see how capitalism kind of worked, how big organizations work. So I was at Bristol Myers Squibb and GE. And then Bristol Myers Squibb actually sent me back to business school at Harvard along the way, which was another great experience along the way. And as I was and I'll close out here, when I was in corporate America, I always found myself being the guy. So I was a kind of an internal consultant, manager, strategic planning person at General Electric with about 7 other former kind of elite MBA types, mostly former military. And I found myself, Dave, being the guy that was always talking about the non-commercial stuff. So we're going to do some big project in Africa around trains and locomotives and what have you. And I wanted to build, what about the school we're going to build?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I found myself mentoring a lot of, I was young at the time, but younger people at GE, they kind of, I was like Yoda, they kind of come to me and ask me questions. I would have mentored, and I had all these folders of the work I was doing, but the work that I loved was in the other folders. The other folders were things about mentorship and individuals mattering, and and I love the corporate piece. But then I bumped into a guy, and I'll say this: you never know where your destiny is going to come from. And I thought about the idea of maybe leaving corporate, and I bumped into a guy named David Bourne. I literally was visiting Oxford, and he was a former senator and governor of Oklahoma. And I walked by on the street, and I said, "Senator Bourne." He goes, "No, it's President Bourne." I go, "President of what?" He said, "President of the University of Oklahoma." I go, "Good for you." And I gave him my card, and I was clean too, Dave. I had him a suit on. I was going to see an old professor, so it was all good. And he called, "Let me call you." A week later, he called me. I was actually doing some work in South Africa. And almost a couple, maybe 18 months, 2 years later, I was working for him as a associate vice president, then a vice president, and a professor. And then the rest is kind of tumbled toward Hampton-Sydney, which was wonderful. And now I'm here.
At RMU.
Yes.
Lives intersect in some amazing ways sometimes.
Yes.
And I think your message to the students is probably the same as mine. Be ready for the opportunity.
That's right.
When it happens.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I also say, when you're younger, you think that, well, two things, and they're misnomers. You think you should focus on a dot. And it's okay. It's like if somebody says, "I want to be the U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania," or I used to say U.S. Senator from South Carolina. Well, that would be tough because the guy that served that job served in it for about 60 years, or one of them did. So I like to help people think about a circle. So I want to help people in government service. So when the opportunity comes, you don't say things like, "Well, no. That's not a direct line to being a senator," Be more sort of open to it. And then secondly, there are no straight lines in our lives. And you and I had that great conversation last night about, the zigzags, right?
Yeah.
You ever would have thought you'd be sitting in this chair right now? And so I always like to tell young people, students, that breathe. It's all good, but you need to work hard, work smart, handle your business, bring your most serious self to the classroom because a lot of people, whether it be in Johannesburg, London, Philadelphia, Dallas, they're competing against you, and you need to bring your best self to the fight. But recognize that you got to be open to serendipity, to your point, to opportunity.
So one of the students, maybe sitting in Calc 2, says, "How have the subject you studied in college helped you?" And I guess that's the old, was it worth it?
Well, of course, Calc 2 was the most important course that I took in my time.
Yeah,
But, in fact, it's ironic. I was having a conversation with our son, who's a freshman in college, and he's going to start Calc 2 in a couple of weeks.
Oh, there you go.
And it's sometimes it's not just what you learn, but how you learn, and the fact that you can learn. Will you sit down and do integrals or derivatives? I'm glad I remember that.
Yeah, there you go.
So the
That's-
math department's like,
I'm
"Good job,
impressed.
Dr. Howard."
It's all good.
So they're thinking about, would you do that when you go into your job, whatever it might be? Maybe, maybe not, but dealing with complexity, abstract thoughts, and trying to make sense of them, to bring some quantitative reasoning into a scenario, that's very, very useful. And so even though it's not going to map one-to-one perhaps unless you go on to a very specific STEM career, you'll think more clearly, and we need clear-thinking people in this world for the world to be successful. So
You learn how to think.
You learn how to think.
Yeah.
This place is good at that.
Yeah. One of the students also asked this question, and I think you touched on this a little bit. So you talked about what first got you interested in RMU. This question is more as you got closer to this decision point. Were there things that really confirmed that this would be the right move for you as you got to know RMU better?
There's a lot of accountants around here.
Yeah, there are.
I love accountants, but they trust but verify. When you do internal audit, when you do any type of outside audit or what have you, you think it's A, but you go back and you get the receipts. And you go back and you start mapping those documents and building those ledgers, and debits on the left, credits on the right. That and derivatives, and that's all I know. I'm done now. But nonetheless, is you kind of do I had a friend who was a forensic auditor. It sounds like something from Quincy.
There you go.
These people don't know what Quincy. Go on YouTube, look up Quincy. It was an old TV show. You'll like it.
Yeah.
But when I started doing the audit of the institution and talking with people like yourself, like Greg, when I started reading about what the school had done, the phenomenal explosive growth, the success in athletics, the success with your graduates and where they've been placed, it really, there wasn't any daylight between what I thought and what I saw, and same with my family. And so that kind of sealed the deal.
People are extraordinarily proud of Pittsburgh, and I think
Yeah.
for good reason. You've picked that up, I'm
Yeah.
sure, already. What are your thoughts about moving from Virginia to Pittsburgh? One of the students wants to know, are you going to become a Pittsburgher?
Well, they say in terms of the Steelers, there are two types of people. You're either a Steelers fan or you're just moving here.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
I just don't have much choice. We are delighted about coming here. You know, my wife and I have moved around. Our kids, I've read my son's college essays, and his essay was like, "Dad made me move 35 times uphill in the snow
In
with
snow.
no shoes, and I had to carry the bag." And no, son, no, you did not. But nonetheless, we're excited about the region. We're going to be coming. You know, hey, we're coming February, so it's going to be. It's gonna be real Pittsburgh. We live in Colorado. I live in Colorado, and I've lived in Boston, so we've kind of been there, done that. But the warmth of the people more than makes the the colder weather worth it. And so there's a palpable sort of hipness, probably maybe the right term and the wrong term to use. And one of the other board members said there's eds and there's tech and there's healthcare and there's all the things that people want.
Yeah.
And it's not that far from Moon Township or RMU. And I look forward to, getting in the mix and being a good citizen in the community.
You have two sons in college, you've mentioned that, and the...
Oh, actually, they're my sons when they behave.
There you go.
They're her sons when they
I
misbehave.
got that. The question relates to what advice do you have for parents, but more for students, and relating to their parents and relating to the advice they get from their parents?
Sure. So, for parents and even for us that are on a privileged to be on a university campus, is the fact of the matter is we get older, the kids stay the same age. So an 18-year-old is an 18-year-old is an 18-year-old, and they're going to make 18-year-old sort of mistakes. Parents need to understand that young people are going to skin their knee, and I mentioned before resiliency. I'm a big fan of Abraham Lincoln and a big fan of Winston Churchill and Dr. King. And Mandela. That's my big four. And those happen to be men. They weren't great successes because they never failed. They were great successes because they did fail, and they learned from it. So parents, let your kids fail. I know it's hard, but you got to let them fall down so they can get up. It's very important. In terms of students, I'm really big into this whole idea of vocational reflection, understanding your purpose, passion, and calling in life. What are you called to do? And so think first about, when you're thinking about your career, your life, your major, whatever, I know you got to pay the bills. It's very important. Think about, those careers, those skill sets you need. But think first about your passion. Because if you're passionate about something, you're willing to sacrifice. So Greek, the word sacrifice comes from Greek, and the word passion comes from Greek, and it means something I'm willing to sacrifice for, right? So passionate, things you're willing to go all in, because people that are passionate about something tend to do better than people who are not passionate about it. And second, if you're not passionate about something, follow your strengths, because quite often you do better in life by playing to your strengths rather than trying to mitigate what you don't do so well. If you're not passionate or you have strengths, then follow your interests. Because something gets you up in the morning, you have to set your alarm clock, you're probably going to do it better than a guy or gal who hates doing it. And finally, if you don't have passion, interest, strengths, then keep your options open. And RMU is good at all those things. And in addition to, because you get great foundational education, that you can keep your options open to go and do whatever you want. So that's kind of my pathway to thinking about your career as a young person.
That's great advice. The last thing we wanted to touch on, and really to give you an opportunity to reflect on where we go from here. So when you arrive on February 1st and it's 65 degrees and sunny, what's the game plan going forward in getting to really be imbued at RMU, and what are your thoughts about how you'll approach this task?
Well, what's interesting, there are never enough sports analogies in the world, right? So let's just go with another one. So when Coach Banaszak takes care of Youngstown State in a couple of days, it's not him walking on the field at noon on Saturday. It's all the work you've done before, and thanks to your leadership and your guidance and the strategic transitioning team you're putting together, we are going to do the work behind the scenes before I even show up and have the lines of communication open. And I'm also going to be humble enough and wise enough to know that if I can't name all the buildings, then I don't need to be making all the decisions immediately. And I think in shared governance in a community, the president, I'm a big Harry Truman fan. The buck does stop here, but there's a lot of we in university. I don't know how you put a W in there, Dave, but there's a lot of we in university. So this ship is upright. It is sailing in a great direction. And my goal is to understand her, to listen, and to come in and bring value as appropriate, but by no means or any stretch of imagination am I trying to come in and just start, like a bull in a china shop. So, but I'm delighted about it. I look forward to our future conversations. I commend you again on your leadership and Greg before you, and as usual, go Colonials.
Well, we're inspired that your hand's going to be on the tiller of that ship, so thank you
Thank you very much, Dave. I
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you.